I do not know when or where this happened, and I don't know how it happened. I know that it happened to both my best friend, Jimmy Spencer, and I, Jimmy being the best damn man who ever did live. We both got what they call intersubjective confirmation over what happened, because soon after I had started telling it to him, we both remembered all of it from our separate pasts, and then to our mutual astonishment, we took turns accurately telling the rest of it to each other. Here's my account of what had happened, just as we both told it to each other. With a small group of people, I had arrived at a remote location in what might well have been the Amazon jungle. We had gone as far from civilization as we could without entering forbidden areas, the end of the line. I didn't know the other people. They walked around investigating the local scenery, but I peered further into the distance from the edge of a lake. Beyond its far edge stood only dense, dark jungle. And to my left, beyond the lake, the jungle looked the darkest, and narrow channels of water projected from the lake into that darkness. I walked a short distance further away from the rest, just beyond their sight, and I came upon several canoes pulled part way out of the water. In the far end of one of the canoes stood a tall, muscular, bronze-toned man with long black hair, wearing only a loincloth, facing away from me. He stood erect, silent, motionless, and with his right hand he held upright a long pole, with one end of the pole straight down into the water beside the canoe. "Excuse me," I ventured. He remained silent and motionless. "Hello? Will you take me somewhere?" Still nothing. I climbed into the near end of the canoe behind the man and sat down. Almost right away, he leaned the pole slightly forward and pushed back and down on it, with some rather powerful-looking arms and shoulders, I might add, and we shoved off, toward the forbidden reaches, I suppose. "Over there," I pointed left, and then realizing that the man faced away from me, I explained, "To the left," just as he had already proceeded to navigate us in that direction, oddly enough. This guy's like some sort of guide or something, I speculated. A really good guide. Seems like he's done this before. It's like this is what he does. And like he knows something about this that goes unspoken. Now, this is about the point in the story where Jimmy'd remembered the same thing from his own life, and he got wide-eyed and had commenced to lay out the facts with me. This guide-type guy in the canoe fascinated me, and I couldn't help thinking that his purpose entailed much more importance than I could comprehend, and that he was the right man to carry it out. He, on the other hand, appeared to pay me no mind at all. He simply stood straight as an arrow and pulled us toward the dark channels or inlets ahead. "That one," I pointed. Again, he didn't look back. He just calmly and confidently adjusted our course toward the right one. No hesitation, no question, just smooth, matter-of-fact action. Fascinating. We entered the selected inlet. It was about 40 feet wide, and we proceeded in the half-light provided by the sun through the narrow opening in the green canopy over our heads. Shortly, the channel forked, and I verbally directed which way to go. I suppose that we came upon 5 or 6 more such forks. At each, I gave the impromptu orders. The way through narrowed and darkened, and my quiet guide acted like he already knew whither I was bound. We drifted along casually for a while. Then down low and directly to my left, I detected the hint of a waterway through the thick growth. "Over there," I said. "I want to go in there." But this time I got no response whatsoever, like I hadn't said anything. "Right there. Turn left in there," I tried again. The guide stopped pulling and spoke to me for the first and the only time. "That is a place not meant for man, a place for no man to go." "Then let's go." And I ducked way down as we maneuvered into the gloom where, apparently, no man should go. A minute or so later, the way opened up a bit, and some direct sunlight shone through, and I could sit up again. Now, in here, the jungle looked different than I expected it to look. It looked prehistoric. Its larger-than-life natural beauty excited my sense of wonder about all things. We casually drifted along again. A couple of 100 feet further, to our left, there appeared a relatively bare patch of ground arising from the water. Neither of us said anything, and seconds later he partially beached the canoe with a single thrust, and I climbed out. The only direction to walk pointed about a 45-degree angle from the course of the water passage. But several fallen trees blocked the path somewhat, only about 5 feet high, though. I looked back at the guide. He stood in the canoe, holding the pole, just like when I'd first seen him. He wore a fixed expression, with chiseled features, and appeared overall statuesque. "Please don't leave me here alone," I requested, but he didn't respond. So I climbed over the barrier of fallen tree trunks and set foot upon open terrain that stretched about 50 feet in front of me and also to each side of me. The soil was bare, dark brown, and dry. Straight ahead, a path cut through an even more different sort of jungle growth. This time it all looked dead, black, and dead. I entered. Even the ground beneath my feet was now black and looked dead. I heard no sounds. I sensed no life. Not even in the air that I breathed. I walked on. The path turned only slightly a few times, but otherwise was a straight shot into this strange place. Not meant for man. Then I noticed a shift in my perception. This dead jungle was actually alive. In a sinister way, like its life was underlying and normally remained masked by its unnaturally black and dead appearance. distance, and yet quickly could do horrible things to any unsuspecting provocateur. I felt vulnerable and watched by everything. Then I heard a sound, a low rumble, way off in the distance in front of me, at ground level, stretching from one side of the invisible horizon to the other. As I walked forward, the rumbling got louder and closer, and now also came down from the sky ahead. My initial near dismissal of the sound turned into full notice of it. I kept on walking. Not until the sound's approach clearly hastened in my direction did I experience a sense of doom. It seemed to me that some unknown major event traveled with the sound, maybe even causing the sound, which increasingly evolved into a thunderous roar. I imagined the entire black jungle waking into deadly animation. I had to get out of there before the sound got to me, but not until I had seen all that I could see of the place. So I pressed onward. I calculated the necessary factors, how fast the sound was coming, its rate of increase, how fast I could run, and the distance back out to the other side of the fallen tree barrier. When I'd gone as far in as I could, and needed to turn and run back now, a tree stood in the center of the path, there before me. It looked like all the rest, black and dead. Branches off the main trunk, conveniently stuck out just right for me easily to climb up a short distance for a better look around. So I did it. Left foot on a branch, right hand on a higher one, then right foot to a higher branch, and left hand to another higher one. But my left hand did not grab hold of the branch. I'd been looking further ahead around the trunk instead of where I put my hand. Have you ever felt the bristles of a cylindrical bottle brush made out of boar's hair? My left hand encircled something that felt like that. But as I squeezed, the bristles, let's say, crumbled to bits. And it felt sickening. And I looked. I had grabbed the tail of a monkey that stood on the branch, and I had crushed its tail like it was dry rotted. The monkey looked as dead as everything else, except for its eyes. They were unmistakably alive, but frozen into position. But the monkey's head was turned so that they stared directly into mine, only a foot or so away. I let go, and I hit the ground in full sprint. I'd already lost a couple of important seconds in my attempt to see a little more than perhaps was healthy for me to see. I had to rely on my calculation, and now to a bit of luck to make it out of there. The deafening sound roared behind me and above me and continued to pick up speed in my direction. By the time I reached the open area of dark brown soil, the last of the trek before the barrier, which now stood in sight, the sound chased me from not far behind at all. And right there, my calculation fell apart. The soil was no longer firm and dry. Instead, it was pure black muck. Deep, slippery muck that I swear moved a little on its own, creating a shifting surface. So now I had to scramble like I'd never done before in my life. I had to make it out of there, but obviously the jungle had a different end in mind. Every bit of focus and energy I had went into getting me to the barrier of fallen trees. I don't know where the extra spurt of energy came from that got me up and over that barrier, which now stood a couple of feet taller than before and leaned toward me at the top and was now covered with that same slippery muck. But that extra spurt came, and it worked. Just as the sound of doom was upon my back, I dropped to stable ground on the other side, and the sound disappeared. The barrier looked normal again, but the guide had started to pull away with the canoe, like he already knew how long it would take, no matter how it worked out. He stopped, and I got in. In silence, we went back the way we'd come. I do not remember any more of it than that. I didn't when I originally told it to Jimmy either. Neither did he. So that's the end of what happened to he and I separately, to the best of my knowledge. But where it happened, and when, or how, I still don't know. Nor do I know what it all meant. But I have heard terms like crossing the river Styx, paying the boatman, and of course the Grim Reaper. Maybe Jimmy and I had gone off on some wild ride with the proverbial boatman, or with an ancient Central or South American version of him lingering in an astral subplane and still carrying out his perennial purpose with whoever comes along. I don't know. But I can attest to the fact that I have gone where no man should ever go, and I wonder how many others have gone there, but not come back. One last thing. Rest in peace, Jimmy. You're the best damn man who ever did live. And I trust that you made it safely across the river.